Greetings, loved ones. I have returned once more with a Speedpaint because I made a promise that I would do more of them and then proceeded to not do more of them. So here we have one of my OCs here, Leahzel, named after the book thief main protagonist. I did do a dissertation on the book thief. I think it's a fantastic book, and the film adaptation is very, very good and loyal to the book as well. Anyway, you can see her up in the corner there where I drew before in a wedding outfit, and the original design made by insert person here on Toy House. I believe I got her in a raffle, and I don't mean to disrespect any designs of my characters when I change what they look like. It's my interpretation. I still don't say that I designed her. That goes to the original designer, which I showed there on screen. I wanted to do this piece because I hadn't done a fashionable piece, and I recently rediscovered Lady Gaga's song Fashion, and I thought, oh, that would go perfectly alongside this. Now, I'm not huge into fashion. I know what looks nice. I like simplicity, but a lot to process. Like my reference images on the right hand side there, I think they are a simple execution, but it still gives the eye a lot to take in, without being overwhelming, of course. Now the reason I say that is because I found this image only a day after starting this speed paint. This was drawn by myself around 2010 or 2011, going off of the dates that I have. But the thing that gets me is I kept this in a folder with a bunch of my certificates from when I was a little child. And the certificates aren't like huge, massive achievements. It's something my primary school or grade school, whatever you want to call it, would do every week just to basically make the kids feel like they were included, and I got a lot of them for art and creative writing. But the fact that it was in there reawoken the memory of me creating it. It was for a school fashion competition, and I'm pretty sure I won second or third place, and that's why it was alongside my certificate. Before finding this, I already knew what I wanted to do for this piece, but it was so funny to see that I've technically done this before, albeit the drawing that I did back when I was a child, 14 or 16 years ago, was very clearly a human. Even though during that time I was probably still within my first big robot phase, which was because of the film 9, and that one other Pixar film. I don't want to talk about that one. I think that aspect's quite notable because I had what I like to refer to as a Great Depression era, where I don't know if something happened, but I cannot remember for the life of me from ages like 8 to 11 when I've made my first friend. Those years are just sort of non-existent in my mind. They were very boring, and I don't think I had many passions during that time, and if I did, it was most likely Moshi Monsters. I can't complain with that, honestly. But nowadays I have regressed back to my love for robots, and that's kind of evident from the content I am creating. Now, I was really playing around here with just creating something, like I said, that was simple but interesting. I wanted there to be a lot to focus on without it being overwhelming, such as some other art pieces I've done in the past. And I was just really, really trying to get myself not to throw this to the side because I was getting annoyed with it. Those little head antennae that stick out the top of Leahzel's head, oh, they were getting to me. And these piston bits, which I adore shading and colouring on literally any drawing that includes them, I hate in this art piece. But you know what I do? I do well. I do the glitter well, which you'll see later on. And I kind of do a little bit of a cheat method for it, so I'm going to show you that. It's very simple. You just layer on your multiple brushes and just, make sure the eye is drawn to the highlight rather than the individual sequences or glitter particles. This crest piece, this shoulder piece, I had a lot of problems with, and I really don't want to talk about it, honestly. It pained me that much. I went in, I added some more details that weren't there in the original full body piece I did where she's in a wedding dress, which was me exploring that concept because I'm petrified of weddings because I'm never getting married. I think marriage is a very legally grey thing if you get cheated on, and I have trust issues. Go figure. So I wanted to do that as a little test for myself, and funnily enough, drawing a wedding dress is only scary when you have to come and shade it. It's not gonna send me into a panic attack because I'm drawing someone getting married. These hands I also go back in and add more detail to later on. I don't like how they turned out, but your eye will not be focusing on the hands. That's something I highly recommend to artists. If you can't hide the hands in an elegant way, make sure everyone is looking away from the hands. Even though they are quite prominent in this sort of Jessica Rabbit pose, I think that was what it was actually listed as on the Clip Studio asset page. I didn't really care for that specific part of it, I just liked the pose and thought, I want a fashionista, I want someone with presence, I want to see some hips, dog. And hips we do have. So I've moved properly onto this shoulder crest piece, and I'm not joking when I say it annoyed me to absolutely no end. If art is pain and pain is beauty, this made me want to do stupid things to my livelihood status. This is not for the weak of heart. I recommend highly against doing this. Just don't do this unless you have more experience, because funnily enough, even though I've done art since my early years as an infant, I'm still not a master. By no means. You'll see me cutting corners in this speed paint. Even though it's sped up, you can still tell. This is something interesting. I looked at the reference and saw that the highlights on their shoulder crests were like blue, but that's given off of the lighting and the kind of fabric. That fabric's sort of like a sheen. I'm looking for just like something silky. So I then just revert it back to white and it looks better. I did try the yellow, but it didn't match as well as I thought it would. This part of the dress was also a little bit more difficult to shade, and I ended up scrapping the idea of having the whole dress be sparkly like it is in the reference and just going for a more latex look. I've drawn that sort of latex, plasticine, glossy look before, and I do really like it. It's just people get the wrong impression and think it's something a bit freaky. And I'm like, no. I just like how stretchy the material is and how glossy it is, because it reminds me of shading visors on a lot of my robot characters. In other news, I am still ill. 4 months on, they finally figured out what was wrong with me. I was most likely battling a long-term infection that could have led to sepsis, but it didn't. It had spread throughout my body, just in little bits, from my kidneys to my lungs, and I wasn't breathing correctly, and the doctors really just didn't give a shit. Even the private healthcare I have, they didn't seem to care either, so that was wonderful. But I went on antibiotics, I had a bad reaction to them, and by bad I mean it's gave me a cold, and that's what I'm coming to the end of right now, so I'm really hoping this is it going forward and I'm no longer ill. Because being ill for 4 months has taken its toll on me. Here you can see I'm really going into that sort of latex look. I put on another layer of shading to sort of add a highlight, and there I am, I go back in for another layer, adding in a little detail that I forgot earlier on there too. And this is where I do the glitter. All I've done is added in 3 separate layers of a dark droplet spray brush, a sort of medium tone one for the slightly more present sparkles, and then a brighter one. And on top of that, I've put in those little white star highlights. I have a brush that does that specifically for me, but you can just do it by taking a brush, just doing a little manually placing your dots and then blurring them out. I'm also going in here just to fix the highlights of the spotlight, add some more things to it, because I was really getting frustrated and I just wanted to get this done with so I can move on to my next piece, which I haven't yet started. I've made the background darker so the character pops out more in the foreground, and I end up going in and doing some things to the hands here, as I mentioned before, just to make them seem more complicated than they actually are. I also checked for continuity errors between my original drawing of Leahzel and what I've drew here today. These little shadowy figures in the background and the foreground are based off of some of my other OCs. You might recognise a few faces, Pompeii is in there. And that's just a nice little subtle thing I like to do to sort of watermark it. Everyone knows it's me that's drawn this. But yeah, this is my first video back for a wee while and I'm happy with how it turned out. I did want to add in another person there, but I thought, nah, it's a bit too much. So I add in the text, finish it up, and the final piece you'll see in a little second. This piece took me below 4.5 hours to do, going off of my Speedpaint times, and I'm happy with how it turned out. I think it's better than my last piece of Leahzel, and you know what they say, you know, practice makes perfect, repetition, all that jazz. I hope you all enjoyed this little Speedpaint, there will be more, and I hope to see you next time.